Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 269 of the RRBG podcast. This podcast is a proud member of the Podbelly Network. Go to podbelly.com and check out all the amazing shows we have on our network, including the Sofa King podcast, Robots for Eyes, Art and Jacob Do America. I mean, there's one for everything that you're into. If you're into Magic the Gathering, they got you. If you're into the occult, they got you. You're into serial killers, they got you. Everything. Go to podbelly.com, check out the list, and support the network. This episode is also brought to you by Killcliff. My friends over at Killcliff make the best energy drink you can buy in the market today. Clean energy, none of that crap that they put in Monster or any of those Red Bulls. No sugar, just clean power for all the grind you're going to have to put in today. And if you're not grinding today and you just want to relax, they also have CBD drinks to help you recover from any injuries you may have, any kind of inflammation. Maybe you went a little too hard at the gym. CBD drink will get you right back on track. Go to their website, killcliff.com. Check out all their different flavors. My personal favorite Ignite drink is the Cherry Limeade. And in the CBD category, you have to try the Joe Rogan Special. It's the Flaming Joe Pineapple with Jalapeno. It's not that spicy. You just get a little bit of a kick at the end. It's delicious. Go to killcliff.com and tell them that RRBG sent you. This episode is also brought to you by our good friends at Saints Joints. Go to saintsjoints.com to check out all the options that they have. They have these amazing packages with pre-roll joints, which will have pre-rolls from either side of the strain spectrum, either indica or sativa, and they even have multi-strain collections. Pick up one of their amazing Book of Saints. They currently have 2 volumes, volume 2 being a special Halloween edition. It looks like the Necronomicon. It's amazing. They're currently available in Washington and Oregon and will soon be available in California. Go to saintsjoints.com and tell them that RRBG sent you. This episode is also brought to you by our friends at Thunderking Coffee. Thunderking provides organic, air-roasted coffee straight out of Costa Mesa, California. It's seriously some of the best coffee I've ever had. My personal favorite is the Positive Morning Attitude. I order 2 pounds of this almost every 2 weeks because I just can't get enough. But they also have bottled cold brew. They have their special California Christmas peppermint cold brew out right now. You can order it from their website. So go to thunderkingcoffee.com and check it out. Support small, independent businesses, people. In this episode is the return of Brian Cook, bass player for bands like Russian Circles, Sumac, These Arms Are Snakes, Botch. The man is a legend. Now, I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. We already had a conversation last week. It was an hour-long podcast, really great, and I forgot to check if Zoom was recording the video. So I told Brian, hey, I only have the audio. It's, my bad. And he's like, let's do it again. So we're doing it again. We had another conversation. It's different than the first one. So I think I'm going to release the first conversation on our Patreon. So go to patreon.com/RRBG. Sign up. It's only $1, and you can get access to a whole other episode with Brian. These Arms Are Snakes are dropping Duct Tape and Shivering Crows April 15th. Make sure to pick that up. Follow them on social media. Follow Brian at BubbleGuts with a Z at the end. Click down here on the subscribe button, please. Click that little bell that's next to it. That helps get notifications. That helps us with the algorithm and helps the show grow. Cheers.
RRBG podcast of the Podbelly Network. And now your host, Eddie Torres.
What's up, everyone, and welcome to the RRBG podcast. I am joined once again by Brian Cook. How are you?
Hello, how are you? I'm good.
I'm good. I'm a little embarrassed.
I don't know why I answered that backwards, but we're
off to a killer start. No, I want to say, I want to be honest with people that are watching and listening. We did this already. We talked last week. We did a whole hour-long podcast. It was great, by the way. And I didn't notice that the Zoom call was not recording the video, so I only had the audio. And I told you, I'm like, hey, I'm sorry, I only got the audio. And you're like, let's do it again. I'm like, okay. I feel bad taking more of your time, but if you're willing to give it, let's do it.
First takes are never the best takes. It's always, you can get it on like the second or third one,
Yeah. Well, I still have the audio, so I might just drop it into like Patreon or something. I don't know. I got to convince people to come hang out at the Patreon too, because, it's a good way to make money.
Got to drive traffic there. I feel you.
Yeah. So how have you been? How's everything going for you, during this time that of uncertainty, especially right now, which we're currently in like even more craziness is happening?
Yeah, I don't know. I was already stressed enough as it is. 'Cause I'm leaving for a tour with Sumac in a few days. So I'm still trying to do all the rote memorization that entails as far as relearning songs and learning how to play songs we haven't played live yet and all that stuff. So I'm feeling slightly overwhelmed, and the state of the world doesn't necessarily help my anxiety, but
yeah, I feel you. I feel you. I had a little breakdown yesterday, man. I finished work, I clocked out, and I was like, I'm gonna play some video games or something to feel better, and then I sat down and just kind of like fell over and just passed out.
Curled up in fetal position, and
yeah, it's like, oh my goodness, what is going on? But it is exciting that Sumac is going on the road.
Yeah, it's weird. I haven't played a show with those guys since July of 2019. So it's getting close to 3 years. I think they did one show without me after that, because they played Psycho Las Vegas while I was out with Russian Circles. So our friend Don McGreevy fill in for me, but for them it's been almost as long too. So it's it'll be weird. It'll be weird to be back out there. But
is it me? I mean, I've lost. The pandemic has made me lose track of time, and I feel like there was a new Sumac album during the pandemic.
Yeah, we put out a double album called May You Be Held, and we put out a Sub Pop single called
Two Beasts.
Yeah, so we had a couple things come out. Two Beasts we recorded February of 2020, right before COVID shut everything down, and then May You Be Held was kind of like a weird assemblage of different sessions and things that we kind of realized it's like, oh, we have a whole other album here. We should put this out. So that was kind of a weird, nice bonus for us in 2020 to still feel kind of productive, even though you couldn't do anything. So, yeah.
And that album's so good. I mean, I remember putting it on, and I had one of those moments. I don't get them often anymore, but I was sitting. I had just smoked a little bit, and I was like, "Man, this is really heavy. How do they continue to get heavier and heavier?" And then there's a moment in one of the songs, I forget, where it just goes to a whole new level, and I just started laughing.
Yeah,
and that's the reaction I had. It was like, this can't be.
Yeah. I was talking with my friend Ben Chisholm about that, about when you're songwriting or when you're hearing something back for the first time. It's like, if it makes you tear up or if it makes you laugh, like you've hit a sweet spot. Like the chuckling over the absurdity of something is always
yeah, I love it, and that's one of my favorite feelings. That's why I guess I gravitate to music like the music you make, because it's I just liked seeing how far people can push creativity and some of the album before this one was, I would say, even more experimental, right? And I mean, I know you did the collaboration that was
with KG Heino.
Man, like that's unless you're sitting there really focused, it's not, it's experimental. That's all I can say with it.
Yeah, definitely with Sumac, it's, we're probably making the wrong kind of music for these times, just because I do think it requires that people really sit and pay attention to the records. It's not good music for multitasking or
I'm the guy that puts that on at the pool hall just to upset everyone.
I mean, it's good for like a crowd deterrent too, but yeah, I think if you have it on in the background, or whatever. I think it's very easy to kind of just be annoyed and confused by it. But
yeah, you have to be focused on it for sure. 100%.
What you need is a beanbag chair and a lava lamp, and you need to like lean into it.
Yeah. Good. Have a good beer. You know?
Exactly. If you're one that's prone to smoke, then it's probably a good time to do it.
Yes. I actually have a beer here with me right now. Crazy looking artwork, I gotta say. My buddy Eric sent me this, and it's from Garage Project in Wellington, and also Collective Arts. I don't know, but I really like the artwork, so I'm gonna try it out.
It's a midday beer, a lunch beer.
Yeah, it's my weekend, dude. I gotta relax. Oh, it's from Canada. Okay. All right. It's an Imperial Stout in oak barrels, finished in tawny port barrels with New Zealand Pinot Noir, South Pacific Vanilla, and New Zealand Cacao. Okay, guys, settle down. Settle down.
You can also just have a beer.
Fuck! Like, I don't have any Pilsners left. This is all I have in the fridge, and I'm worried now because it's 10.8 and it has grape skins, vanilla, and cacao.
Wow!
Whatever. Fuck it. Let's do it. Just a little bit. Let's try it out.
Like a literal kitchen sink thing going on here.
Tastes like wine.
Okay.
I don't know. That's interesting. It tastes like wood. All right. Anyway, by the way, speaking of Sumac and beer, I just recently spoke with the gentleman over at Wake Brewing. Are you familiar with them?
I am not familiar with Wake. No.
So check them out. They're metal, rock, heavy music focused. They work with the folks over at Decibel that print out the flexi discs. Oh, cool. And they put flexi discs like in their 4-packs and of beer and stuff like that. And they have concerts, and I think they've done a few collabs. I think they did like Red Fang, maybe, if I'm not mistaken. But anyway, I asked them, like, if you could collab with any band, who would it be? And they said Sumac. So I was like, you know what? I'll bring it up.
Cool. I think it'd be hard to fit one of our songs on a flexi, but you never know. We did an 18-minute long song on a 7-inch, but we also cut actually like 6 minutes off the song. So
how do you do it? How do you sit there and relearn 18-minute songs? You know what I mean? On top of all the other bands you have.
It's tough, especially with Sumac stuff, just because there's not a ton of repetition. Mm-hmm. There's not a lot of 4/4 happening. And
is there any sheet music for Sumac?
I have some. Actually, I might have some right here. It's really probably not helpful to anyone, including myself. Like, it seems it sort of makes sense, like, in the moment as I'm like, writing it down, but I don't read music, and I don't really have the patience to do tablature and stuff like that. So I kind of just have to do weird coding. Hold on one second. I have one right over here that I can.
Yeah, no worries.
Yeah, this is just to illustrate the point. This is this is for the song "Consumed." So if you can,
oh my goodness,
sort of, if you can figure out what any of this means, then please let me know. Because
oh my goodness, and did you write that?
Yeah, and I wrote this back when we recorded the material in 2017 or so. So it's aged for 5 years, so now it really doesn't make any sense. But
air dried. You should sell those aged vintage not lyrics. It's not even tabs. What notes?
Chicken scratch. I don't know what, but yeah.
That's crazy. And that's the creative mind though. That's the process that whatever you need, I guess, to get it down.
Yeah.
You see it all the time. You see writers will have Post-it notes and like on a wall, and they just kind of move stuff around. And
yeah, that's yeah. I'm kind of like the "It's Sunny in Philadelphia" meme right now, where the guy has like doing a panicked look at it. That's sort of me trying to figure out the 2 hours worth of material we're planning on learning for this tour. So it's a little hectic.
Yeah. So what do you do to calm down and like get yourself in the zone to kind of focus on that?
I don't know. I should have a method, but I really don't. It's I find that I don't know.
Are you listening to the music? I mean, are you sitting there just blasting the songs and playing along? Like, how do you get in the headspace?
It usually, you do a bunch of, you just, the days preceding, you just listen to the material over and over again to kind of just absorb the general framework and kind of get some of the timing things sort of ingrained in your head. And then I go back through with my notes and I try to just read the notes and follow along the music to see if I can actually decipher what I've written down. And then I usually make a new set of notes that makes more sense in my current headspace. And then I start, filling in the notes and playing along and doing all that stuff. So,
are you using a laptop on stage right now for anything, like for yourself, for your rig?
No.
I was gonna say, like, it's got to be. It helps, but it's also a pain in the ass to sit there and program all this stuff, and also nerve wracking to kind of like keep up with it during a live show.
Yeah. It's. I don't know. I have a thing against laptops on stage. It's like my weird Luddite mindset, but I just feel like there's a picture of Jane Child with like, you remember Jane Child? Mm-hmm. She was like an 80s pop star. She had like the, Skid Row snake chain between her pierced nose and she had big spiky hair and braids. But it's a picture of her like hanging out with a keyboard. And then there's like an Apple IIe next to her. Like she was so ahead of the time that she like apparently used an Apple IIe for some aspect of her music. And whenever I look at it, I'm like, that must have seemed really badass in like 1985, but like now it's just like sweet Apple IIe,
Yeah, no, it's cool. I mean, respect, I guess, to lug around a whole fucking Apple, that's a lot of work.
Yeah, I mean, that's, that's a lot to transport. But.
Yeah, I got into this weird headspace when I was with my band. There was like a couple years in there where I thought I was Mike Patton or something, and I had a guitar pedal case filled with a couple pedals, a mixing board, and I just kept adding shit. Mm-hmm. And it would take like an hour to fucking set up before a show, and I'm just like, what are we doing?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's kind of the thing Russian Circles has run into, where we're coming up on our 8th album that's coming out later this year. And, we're gearheads to a certain degree. And, we've cycled through a lot of different crazy pedals and guitars and amps and things like that. But at a certain point, it's just like, I can't travel with all this stuff anymore. Mm-hmm. It's like, it's expensive. Like flying with just a pedal board, our pedal boards weigh like 60 pounds. So they're already overweight, and it's like $100 to throw it on a plane, and none of us live in the same city. And you add in a bass guitar and a baritone, and then cables and everything else, and it's like I barely have room for clothes when I go on tour. I always want to be more of a dapper, well dressed gentleman.
Yeah, I've seen you with the button ups and the suspenders and the.
Yeah, I try, but really at the end of the day, it's like. I can't afford to bring a bunch of clothes on tour. You're within 6 feet of me, that stuff's been through the ringer. And
well, you're opening up for Korn and System of a Down now, so now you got to get yourself like an 18-wheeler, and
right. I mean, I gotta have my traveling wardrobe, flight case, and all that stuff.
There has to be a full 18-wheeler just for your bass stuff and your wardrobe.
That's awesome, man. That's like, you hear stories of like John Mayer traveling with like 100 guitars on tour.
That's a little much.
Yeah. Why?
Yeah. I had who was it? It was Aaron North from Nine Inch Nails was telling me that when he was on that tour, they had like a whole truck just full of guitars because they would break one every night.
Oh, well, that makes a little more sense.
It's just like a stock of just guitars to destroy.
Yeah. I mean, it's 9 Inch Nails. I get it. I thought the second you were going to say that they had like a semi full of guitars just because, you know.
Oh, one for each song?
Yeah, Trent Reznor was such like a tone freak. It's like, it makes a little more sense if it's, you know.
I don't want to call it a prop because it makes it sound cheap, but, you know, it's part of the show for sure.
Yeah, it's fair enough. I mean,
yeah. So now as the mission, like for you, is trying to figure out how to contain your tone, because you're known for your tone. You're known for your incredible sound. You get heavier and heavier and cleaner, and you know it really cuts through the music. Which, you know, for years, if you're a metalhead, you know that bass is a struggle. I mean, I played bass in a band. It's a struggle because you listen to Metallic albums and you know what we mean. But you've done it so where, you know, people are respecting that tone, and it's like, you know, it's a go-to thing. So now how do you condense all of that for what you were trying to say, like you're for touring and keeping it simple?
I mean, that's kind of the struggle, you know. I mean, I think I've kind of come to a point where I feel pretty set on, you know, my primary grit sounds. You know, I use a Fuzzrocious cattail, and I use a Dark Glass Alpha Omega, and, you know, I kind of cycle through fuzzes a little bit just because fuzzes have such different properties and applications, and, you know, sort of depending on what material we're focusing on, different things suit the bill better. But, you know, otherwise it's, you know, a good imitation Rat, vintage Rat is just like a really, I don't know, it kind of does everything I need a distortion pedal to do. So
yeah, well, that's what makes artists go to the laptops, and that, like, that's the allure of it, is that I have, you know, everything I need is in here, and that's it, you know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you know, with Russian Circles, this whole last record, we weren't together in a room working on material until a few days before we went in the studio. You know, we wrote it all remotely at home, and, you know, we were working in Logic with amp models and things like that. And I mean, one of the big struggles was you write these songs with very specific, you know, in the box amp settings and pedal configurations. And even if we're using our own guitars and maybe a few pedals on our board to get those sounds, like, you kind of wind up writing around the tool, which is Logic, you know. And then when you have to transpose that onto actual gear, you know, we definitely got demo-itis, where it's just like, oh man, that plug-in amp sound on Logic sounded so much cooler than my own amp. So I totally get the allure. But yeah, I don't know.
I rather put the work in and lug stuff around than have to resort to all of it being on a laptop. Yeah, you know, yeah. I think there's good arguments either way. You know, it's the convenience of being able to, like, just bring a laptop and plug into any amp and speaker configuration and being able to get, like, the sound is pretty convenient. Yeah. You know, I just think it's, you know, it's always a little weird when the sound is, like, built for you in a program. You know, it's like part of the art of being in a band and finding your sound is like cobbling together hardware and just seeing what works and, you know, sort of harnessing its idiosyncrasies and whatnot. And, you know, when someone's kind of done all that for you and it's just like, oh, here's the tone, it's all dialed in for you. It's like, what keeps you from sounding like every other band using that exact same setting? Yeah. You know? Well, that's what makes you stand out, though. That's why you stand out, is because you care about this, not just the writing of the music, but the sound of the music, which a lot of bands don't really like. They're focused on writing a song. Oh my God, we did it! We wrote a song from start to finish. You know, like that's their main concern. But it's so important to focus on the actual tone as well. Like that's what makes you stand out, man.
Yeah, for sure. And it's tough, you know. And again, it's like I was saying, it's great when you can figure it out and you're in your practice space and you got everything dialed into sounding exactly like you want it. And then, you go to Europe for your first tour and all of a sudden you're on all new gear that's been in a warehouse and dimed out by a bunch of other bands, and put through the ringer. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, like this equipment doesn't respond the same way. And you have to sort of refigure everything out. And it's tricky, it's a struggle. So
yeah, and especially now too with we talked about this in our last take, but opening up for Korn and System in a big arena, you now have to figure out how your tone sounds there, because you're not used to that type of size in terms of venue.
Yeah, and that's something we really had to think about. We only played for 20 minutes on those arena shows, so we were only playing 3 songs, but we had to think, what 3 songs can we play that, will engage that crowd, but will also have enough of our own distinctive style and won't suffer from like stadium acoustics where, you don't want to play a black metal influenced song with a bunch of dissonant chords in an arena, because no one's going to pick up on the note combinations and things like that. It's just going to sound like a ball of static with So yeah, there's definitely like there's a process and a science to figuring out how to play in different spaces.
Yeah, I remember hearing about that with talking to one of the gentlemen that makes music for pro wrestlers.
Oh yeah,
and WWE, and how they have to make songs that sound good in a stadium, not on an album. Like, it sounds like crap on an album. It sounds kind of weird, but then when you hear it at the stadium, it's perfect. Yeah. So the arena mix,
Well, it's something I think you learn being a touring band too. Just the process of like traveling in a van, where you learn really quickly that Big Black doesn't sound good on a van stereo when you're going 75 miles an hour down an interstate, because it's those that shrill trebly guitar sound just turns into white noise.
Yeah, and I don't know about you, but white noise makes me sleepy.
Yeah. So you don't want that.
No. So what were the 3 songs you played with? Because I missed that tour. I wanted to go, but it was just crazy.
Let's see. We played. Well, we mixed it up. On the first run, we did Deficit, and we did Quartered, and I think we did Harper Lewis, and then we scrapped Deficit for the makeup shows, and we added Vorel, I think.
Vorel, okay.
Yeah. So,
nice.
Yeah, we kind of played the heavier, simpler ones. We also had like a 10-minute changeover between us and Korn. And 10 minutes for a changeover is
not a lot of time.
It's not a lot of time. So.
You have to have a whole crew there to just everybody grab a piece and get out,
Yeah. So, we were kind of trying not to have a bunch of cables and extra gear lying around. So it was, whatever were the sort of simplest and most streamlined songs just tended to make the most sense.
How big is the Korn crew? Because I went to Knotfest and I talked to some of the guys, and they were telling me that it was like 124 people touring with them. I'm like, what?
I couldn't tell you. I mean, I tried to count how many buses and semis were on that tour, and I just couldn't keep track of it. And there's definitely a handful of faces that you recognize day to day and in the backstage area and the catering rooms and stuff, but there's just so many people, and it takes at least a few days to realize it's like, oh, some of these people are local crew, some of these people are actually on the tour, but it's insane. It's just a ton of people, and then it's us like in a minivan.
Yeah.
6 of us. And, yeah. But
so is the aspiration to ever get to that point? No, you just want to stay small.
Well, I mean, we were kind of just like, if we could get to the point where we can consistently play 500 cap rooms, like that's pretty ideal. That's, if you're playing a 500 cap room, there's probably a pretty decent stage and a pretty decent PA, and there's probably a pretty decent green room with a bathroom backstage. And if all those things are in place, then it's like, that's kind of perfect, I guess I wouldn't mind maybe being to the size where you're playing theaters. Like, that'd be kind of cool. But, the idea of playing like a stadium and working on that level just seems like, I don't know.
Too much work?
Too much work, too much pressure, too much at stake. I feel like just getting to that point requires a lot of compromises, and it's, I don't know. A friend of mine once pointed out, he's like, the bigger the band that we've toured with, he was talking about opening for bigger bands. He's like, the bigger the band, it just seems like the more unhappy they are. And it's kind of true. It's like,
it's more business.
It's more business. I think it's at some point the joy that comes with creating gets eclipsed by this desire or this demand.
Deadlines.
Yeah.
Deadlines from people that are making a lot of money right now.
Yeah. So it's, and I don't know, it's nice to be able to like walk down the street and not be harassed because, you are a celebrity. That's, I don't mind privacy. So
I mean, do you get harassed at like local shows if you go to like local smaller band shows, like club shows, just to hang out? I mean, I don't know if you do that at all, but
yeah. I mean, I like going to shows still. But it's like in Seattle, it's like, I mean, I've been going to shows I'm 44. I started going to shows when I was 14. So it's, it's most of the time if I'm going to go see, like Mortiferum or, some like Helmsley or another local band. It's like, I know most of the people at the show. So it's not.
All right. Everybody's just like, hey, what's up?
Yeah. It's nothing too stressful. But, if Russian Circles are on tour and we all leave the building at the same time to like go get dinner and there's people outside, then it's usually, those people are like, oh, I recognize these three characters, and then there might be
some light punishing.
Yeah, some light punishing, but that's fine. So
it's part of the gig. It's part of the deal. I've always I laugh at punishers. I've been, I'm sure, myself a punisher at times.
Yeah.
It happens, Let me ask you, have you punished anyone?
Oh, me?
Yeah.
Of course. Yeah. I mean,
who's like the biggest like that you've punished, you would say?
Yeah, I don't know. That's hard to say.
Like, I guess, Alice Cooper.
No, I mean, my heroes aren't like huge people. So it's, I mean, when we were out with Mastodon, we played San Francisco, Jello Biafra was backstage. And that was kind of like, that was kind of a tricky one. Cause I loved Dead Kennedys. I mean, that was kind of like one of my points of entry into music, or into like underground music. And I interviewed him for the paper here in Seattle years prior, but like I'd never like interacted with him one-on-one. So I think that's one of those things where it's like, oh fuck, I feel like I'm a 15-year-old again. Talking to Jello Biafra and, putting my foot in my mouth.
Yeah.
But, I was fortunate that was, a few years ago where I was, had years of experience being in bands and being on the other end of things where I wasn't too much of an asshole. But
yeah, be cool, man. Be cool.
Yeah. So, there's that whole like don't meet your heroes thing.
Yeah.
And with this, it's just like, it's not necessarily like don't meet your heroes because your heroes might be jerks. It's like don't meet your heroes because there's probably nothing you can say that's gonna come across cool. You're just gonna make an ass out of yourself. So
sure, yeah. I mean, I've done it a couple times. I'm sure. I mean, I think the worst was like Adam Jones from Tool.
Yeah.
And then I went back and apologized after because I was like, that I know that sucked. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's tough.
Yeah.
I mean, on one hand, it's like every every artist wants to know that their work's appreciated. And, you know, at a certain point, people stop talking to you about, you know, people sense that you don't need encouragement anymore. So you stop getting those affirmations. And then you're kind of just like, well, I think people still like my music because they still buy tickets and they still buy records. So that seems like a good sign. And people seem to have fun at the shows, but like no one in my life is actually coming up to me being like, hey, just so you know, like your record really meant a lot to me and blah, 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 blah. Like you kind of don't get that a whole lot anymore. So when you interact with, you know, someone who's outside of your circle, it's like, hey, by the way, like your work's like super meaningful to me and blah, blah, blah. It's like, that is like a really awesome feeling, you know? So I think it's just difficult. And I say this being on the other end as a fan too, it's a lot of times it's really difficult to figure out how to like tell someone that you appreciate their work without it getting weird.
Yeah. Cause it's two levels of weird. It's the weird for yourself. Like this feels weird for me. And then it feels weird for them. Like it's all just mental health, right? It's all just the confidence levels, managing them and knowing what to say or how to say it. Yeah. It's a battle. But all right, we were talking about something I wanted to go back to. I wanted to ask you if there was a big arena band, stadium band that needed a bass player. Is there any that you would be like stoked to be a fill-in bass player, or you know somebody passed away and now you're the bass player?
Yeah, you know, someone asked me that on like Tumblr or something, not like super long ago, and I just don't really know. Like,
what if Metallica called and said Trujillo's out and we need you?
Oh man, I mean, yeah, probably, but also just I don't know. Like, you know, I saw Some Kind of Monster, man. I don't know if I want to get myself into that. You know, I saw what Newstead threw. I don't know if I want to I don't want to go through that kind of hazing. So, I mean, it'd be fun. And, but yeah, I don't know. It's tough. I always kind of freeze when people are like, what are some bigger bands that you like? And it's like, I don't like bigger bands.
Well, look, you can even consider Mastodon an arena band at this point. Yeah. They're selling out arenas. So, like, if Troy had to go somewhere, would you jump in?
As much as I love the Mastodon guys, no. That's just like that's too much work, man. Those songs are complicated, and that's like a
and he sings a lot.
Yeah, I have a musicianship that's just not really not my blood. Love those guys, love their band, but I don't think I could do it.
All right.
You know, like I don't know, 9 Inch Nails seems fun, but I'm not pining to be in 9 Inch Nails. You know.
Go break some bases.
Yeah. That'd be gratifying, I guess.
Yeah, just smash them. I mean, yeah, how do you turn down that gig, you know?
Yeah.
Like, if somebody calls you like, hey, we need a keyboardist for 9 Inch Nails, like, I don't play keyboard, but I'm there.
Yeah. I'm sure Trent's just going to tell me what to do anyway, so.
Yeah, it'll be fine.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about These Arms Are Snakes. They... Duct Tapes and Shivering Crows is it out already? April 8th.
Well, 15th, I believe.
Oh,
right.
It will ship on the 8th.
Okay.
All right. Yes, and then it will be out digitally on April 15th.
Yeah. So yeah, it's not a new album. It's a compilation.
Right.
Of basically all of our B-sides and rarities and you know, songs from split 7 inches and split EPs that we did, and then our first demo. So it's all in one double album, and yeah, it kind of spans the whole career, and yeah, we were always kind of one of those bands that we kind of came out of 90s hardcore, where you know a lot of 90s hardcore bands put out great 7 inches or put out really cool split 7 inches with bands, but maybe never had quite the amount of material to come out with like solid LPs. So, you know, it was like, that was a culture of like really cool 7-inches and comps and things like that. So, we came out of that. So we always put a lot of stake into these like smaller projects, even though they weren't as high profile as our LPs. And, over the years, it's like, it's kind of a shame that, these songs that we really cared about were, only on a 7-inch that was available in the UK with 500 copies, and cost $15 to order in the States. It's like, we should probably just make those all in one place and, make it convenient for the fan. So
what's up with the name? I mean, duct tape kind of makes sense, kind of like you're piecing it all together, all the pieces from different, EPs and everything. But what's up with the Shivering Crows?
Well, we're always a band that like struggled to agree on anything. So, our first LP was called Oxen Ears, or The Lion Sleeps When Its Antelope Go Home. And that was literally just like a compromise because there was two different camps where some people wanted to call the album Oxen Ears. Some people wanted to call it The Lion Sleeps When Its Antelope Go Home. Let's just call it both. And with this one, there was a camp that was really into the idea of duct tape just because the band was always just barely holding it together. Equipment was barely functional. As humans, we were barely functional. There's just enough money to get to the next show. We were just, like a train that was about to go off the rails, just, rattling apart at its seams. But duct tape, if you go on Spotify and look up duct tape, it's a thing that's been used a few times. So, Shivering Crows is a reference to the song Woolen Airs, which was the first song on our last album. And Seattle has a huge crow population, so it's always sort of felt like our little mascot logo thing. The crow is sort of representative of our town. So early shirts had crows on it and all that. And well before Portlandia did the put a bird on it, we had bird for our stuff. So it just kind of seemed like a good way of encompassing the entire history of the band. It's like, there's always the crows. There's always just things being patched together as cheaply and economically as possible. So
nice. Well, I know you guys did some reunion shows, but I mean, are there more being planned for the future? Has this idea of putting all this together, I guess it depends also how it's received. That's probably going to affect your thought process on it. But, the thoughts of doing more shows or maybe actually getting together to write a new EP or something.
Yeah, we're not going to write anything new just because I mean, I even hesitate to call what we've done a reunion just because, when we broke up, there was always this idea that it's like, we're going to, we're going to finish everything up in a nice, tidy way. Like the last show that we actually played before we broke up was a total disaster and, equipment failure, didn't finish the set. It was a hometown show, but on a night where there was a ton of other things going on. So, and it was in an all ages space where there was no alcohol. So it didn't even really feel like it was our crowd. And, we're just kind of like, we need to do some proper final shows before we all part ways. And then it just never happened, and a lot of that was just like personal reasons where people had things going on. And then, band members started moving away to different states or different countries. And, it was something that continued to be talked about, but logistically it was just sort of impossible until COVID happened and everyone's lives slowed down and we were all sort of back in the same city again. So then it became a thing where it's like, well, we'll play a Seattle show, but if we're doing all this effort to do a Seattle show, maybe we should do a couple other key cities at some point down the line. So that still kind of remains the plan, where we'll probably do, a show on the East Coast and maybe another West Coast show. And there's some things in the works, but not at a point where I can announce it.
All right. I mean, you're going to need to sell those vinyls, though.
Oh, yeah. And, like that's coming out. I think Epitaph took over J-Tree, and, they've been slowly going through the J-Tree discography of the bigger sellers like Chester Brazil and Promise Ring and Vader of the Lion and doing all those reissues. But I think we're finally up in the queue for some vinyl reissues with them. So
nice. Hopefully
that'll be out later this year. And just, kind of seemed like all the pieces kind of fell in place where it's like we're not doing a reunion, but, there is a lot of activity just that's, been postponed for a decade.
Right. Well, I mean, that's kind of been an approach with some of the other bands. Like, look at, I don't know, maybe they consider it a reunion, but like Poison the Well never really broke up, but they just kind of went inactive. And then now they're kind of like doing Furnace Fest, or, they did Psycho, and like, there's stuff happening, but it's not like they're not back. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. It's always tough because, reunion things I have such mixed feelings about them. And usually it really just all boils down to how I feel about the band.
Right. And you have now 2 bands that are like people are rumbling about reunions about.
Yeah. So, it's tough, and I don't want to be one of those sourpusses that's like, no reunions ever. It's bullshit.
Yeah.
That's just never say never, like you never know. Like with Botch, it was always like, I don't ever want to do a reunion. But then when Caleb from Cave-In died, and, all the Hiderhead bands kind of came together and did a fundraiser for him, for his family and things like that. It's like, that would have been really nice to be a part of, but logistically it didn't work because I was on tour and Dave Knudsen was on tour and we couldn't swing it. But that was one of those scenarios where it's like, this is something I would have totally considered. So who knows, there could be another scenario like that somewhere down the line where it's like, this is something that, would make sense and would feel right. But, just relearning Sumac songs is such a pain. Like, relearning Botch songs after 20 years, it's like, oof.
Yeah, and those are some complex songs. They're not easy.
Yeah, like it's one thing to relearn notes. I think we talked about this last time we talked.
Yeah.
It's like to relearn like, this is what my hands do, but it's like the chemistry within the band and sort of remembering like who to follow, and if something gets derailed, like who are you latching on to get things back on track, especially with a band like Botch where it's very chaotic and things do fall apart in the set on purpose. It's figuring out how to come out of those moments that's tricky.
Because you have to reestablish that connection you had, because there is a telepathic connection in the band.
Yeah,
it happens, and people don't talk about this enough, I think, but it's a real thing. You communicate without saying anything. And that connection is hard to get. And, you may have it for some time, but if there's a gap of time like you guys have, it's probably going to be very difficult to reestablish that connection.
Yeah. That's not something you can do over the course of like a weekend, Yeah. That's like months of practicing, and, maybe there's a scenario where it's worth doing that, but like dedicating months to practice for a band that's defunct just is like, I'm struggling to get my head above water now.
Right.
Adding that to the mix is like, ooh, okay.
Yeah. I mean, I would love to see the Caleb fundraiser thing happen again. Like, I mean, I'm sure the family still needs help.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't get easier. You know what I mean? So it'd be cool to see another. I know we got hit by the pandemic. I was actually at that one. I remember here in LA they did Celestial.
Yeah.
ISIS got back together for a night, and it was great. Being able to see them, because I hadn't seen them in years. But I think that should happen. Maybe not yearly, but every couple of years, it'd be cool to have a big party for them.
Yeah. I mean, who knows? I wasn't super close to Caleb, so I'm not in contact with his family or anything like that. I'm but I'm friends with the other Caven guys, and so I don't know what the whole scenario looks like now, but I hope the family's doing better, because it's so devastating.
Yeah. I mean, they're doing, I'm sure they're okay. There's been a lot of fundraisers, not just shows, but like, shirts and albums that they've put out that, raising money. So it's, they've gotten help, but it's one of those things, like it's ongoing, it's an ongoing issue. But, the reason that people are rumbling about Botch reuniting is because you got this deal with Sargent House, where they're putting out the catalog, I believe, on the digitals, and maybe reissuing some vinyl.
Yep. Yeah. Well, Romans should be out this fall, I think.
Okay. That's
the plan. With vinyl delays and all that, everything's.
I guess I'll get another copy. I'm just...
yeah. I don't want to reveal too much, but it's definitely a new version of Romans. So remastering, or it's been remastered. We had to make new plates. It no longer has the remix on the vinyl. Like, the original vinyl side D was like a remix of Worker Bees that some friends of ours did. And while, I'm sure there's probably some purists out there that are like, no, I want the version with the remix. In our minds, it's like, well, it also sounds like a remix from the 90s. So, it was always thought of as like a bonus track and not a part of the record. So we figured we would mix things up and add something different to side D. So it is a very different version when it comes to side D.
Okay.
I'll leave it at that.
You'll leave it at that. All right. That's exciting for Botch fans, and I can see why people will get excited about the potential of a reunion show and all that. So, but it is, like you said, it's difficult. It's not easy putting all those pieces together and reconnecting. And you've seen it happen with certain bands that get together, they do these reunion shows or whatever, and then it just kind of fizzles out again.
Yeah. I mean, it's tough. I don't like seeing or watching bands do the endless reunion cycle where it's like, I don't know, it's like Dead Kennedys, where it's like, I mean, loved Dead Kennedys as a kid. I'm sure it would have been awesome to see Dead Kennedys play in 1983, but do I want to go see Dead Kennedys play in 2022 where it's a different singer and it's just like a bunch of like old drunk dudes like singing along to California Uber Alice? It's like, I don't know, like the magic of those bands is so often tied to the time and the place where it happened, and then when you update it and take it into a new era, it's just not as exciting. And some artists can do it, and and I'm sure there's some people that go to see the Dead Kennedys now and they're like, no, it's still great. Like, I just love the songs. I don't care. But, for me as a fan, it's like, as much as I love Minor Threat, I don't want to see a bunch of like 50-year-old dudes go up and play
punk music.
Yeah. Like, I just don't, it won't like be like a fulfillment of a dream. It'll just kind of be like, oh, like, well, that was certainly like seeing a cover band, like
yeah.
No disrespect to anyone involved, because I love Minor Threat and I respect what all those dudes continue to do in the landscape of music. I just, it's like, it's not 1982. It's not Washington DC. Like, why? I'll never have been around for that, and that's fine.
Yeah. Is there any band that you think has pulled it off, the comeback?
Yeah, because I'm a really big fan of this Toronto band called Constantines.
Okay.
I think they broke up around 2009, 2010, and one of my old bands did a few weeks on the road with them, and I just think they're like one of the greatest, maybe the greatest rock band of like the OOs. Okay. Maybe tied with Boris, but different vibe. Constantine's were kind of like, like an indie rock band with like a soul singer, and then like Fugazi, like late era Fugazi, like kind of post punk influences in there. And they're sort of one of the bands that they broke up, but then every few years they'll do like a one-off Toronto show, and that's one of those things where it's like, man, I'd love to see that, just because I feel like their music doesn't sound tied to an era, and it doesn't sound like it's tied to a specific like age demographic. It's just like they're good, kind of timeless songs, and like that's one thing where it's like, yeah, if those dudes are like still playing those songs at 50, like I would still be excited about it. That kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier, where it's, how I feel about the reunion is often contingent on how I feel about the band. So
sure, yeah.
A band I never really cared about, or a band that I've sort of, have fallen out of favor with, and it's like, oh, why are they doing this cash grab thing?
Oh yeah.
Whereas if it's something that's still meaningful and resonates with me, like if his Heroes Gone played a show, I would go see his Heroes Gone play, because yes, I want to see that again. But why that gets a pass, I don't know. That's because I like him.
Yeah, that's true. That's how it is. If you like them and you just want to be there, even just to experience that, even if, the expectations are low, you're still kind of want to support whatever they're doing.
Yeah. Like I went to go see the Infest reunion shows. I went and saw Rorschach when they reunited, and like those were all like both great shows. And I think on some level it's also because like I know Rorschach's not making a ton of money doing a reunion show, so I'm sure they're doing it just because they want to do it and play those songs, and like that's like appealing to me. So
yeah. Well, I mean, hell, I was thinking about it, and I'm like, one band that did like a comeback was Refused, like that, and when I saw the videos of them playing like the first reunion shows, I think it was Coachella, maybe.
Yeah.
It was kind of like, wow, okay, they sounded great, and pulled it off. So
yeah, they're definitely one where, that Shape of Punk to Come record was such like a big. I mean, it wasn't a big record when it dropped in terms of popularity, but it just sounded like a band that was like bigger than they were, I guess.
Yeah, they were onto something.
Yeah. It's like, the fact that they broke up, in North Carolina at like a basement show is kind of like, wow, that's how they went out. Like that record just sounds like this like well-oiled machine that was like, like just kicking ass in huge clubs. And
New Noise was like all over the place. I was seeing it on TV, I was seeing it in movies,
Yeah. So for that, it's like it's cool that they finally got the treatment that record deserved, and like the people finally caught up to it, and that's definitely one where like good for those dudes.
Yeah, hell yeah. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about beer, because I know you drink. Yeah. So do you have any collaborations that are in the works with anyone? Or anything like that?
No, we did. Russian Circles did a black Pilsner with Wayfinder. I don't know, a year or two ago, but that's sort of the last thing we've done. And we had like an Imperial Stout. Man, that was years ago though. Was that Three Floyds?
For Russian Circles?
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, nothing in the queue at present.
Well, like I said at the top of the show, the Wake buddies, the Wake brothers, the Wake Brewing is like, I think is a good fit for if Sumac was to do a beer. I don't know how Aaron feels about that. I don't think he drinks. Aaron
is not a drinker. And then Nick drinks, but Nick definitely likes his lagers. It's like he's not a fancy beer guy. He likes the.
Hey, you make a lager. They're popular these days. The Crispy Boys.
Yeah, he likes a Crispy Boy for sure.
Is that your go-to? Like, what is your go-to beer when you go out to watch a show or something? Or style? It doesn't have to be a beer.
Yeah, I don't know. I used to be. I mean, if I'm at home and I'm just hanging out, I'm going to have a beer. I'm usually just going to have one beer, and so I'll have like a really nice IPA. I like the New England style IPAs or the unfiltered hazy IPAs. That's kind of my number one choice. But if I'm out at a show, I'm probably more likely just to get like a Rainier. I like a good tall boy of a domestic. I'm into it.
Yeah.
I just like beer. I like all beer.
Yeah.
It's weird that I don't like a beer. When I find a beer I don't like, it's usually like, wow.
Is there a style that you don't like at all, like smoked beer maybe, or like a Rausch beer or sours? I don't know.
No, I'm into sours. But again, sours, it's like if you have one, then you're good. Like I don't want to like drink 3 or 4 of them.
Yeah, it ruins your tummy. I get all bloated. I get all burpy and weird.
Yeah. I mean, I'm past the point in my life where I drink 3 or 4 beers. My body doesn't like it. So I'm a 1 or 2 type of guy at this point. But yeah, the only thing I don't really like are like brown ales. Like I don't want to drink a Newcastle or
okay.
I don't like like box a whole lot, but
okay.
Otherwise it's like if someone gave me one, I wouldn't be like, oh, okay.
Yeah, sure. The only beer that I will do that to is a Rausch beer, a smoked beer.
Yeah, I don't know if I've had them.
They're so bad to me. It tastes like Novocaine, like just poison.
I will say this. One of the few beers I have ever poured out, I'm not going to say who made it, but it is a Northwest brewery, and they did a bacon maple donut beer. And I got it because I was like, I have to try it. I want to see what this actually tastes like. And
was it a collab with Rogue? Or not Rogue, with Voodoo Donuts or whatever it was, the place that makes the...
No comment. Yes.
Was the bottle pink? Because I bought that beer.
I think a lot of beers you have like a sip and you're like, whoa, that's funky. And then a second sip and you're like, okay. And by like the third sip, you're like, your palate's adjusted, and it's like, even if it's not the greatest, you can get through it. But that one, it was like, I probably had like 3 or 4 sips, and I was like, you know what, I just can't recalibrate my mouth to not hate this. It just tastes like weird liquid smoke and like just like
sweetness, cloyingly sweet.
Yeah, like sometimes like I don't know. When I first started drinking beer, a lot of times certain beers just kind of tasted like a moldy Raisin Bran. Had that sort of like that grainy, bready taste, but like it just had kind of like turned in a weird way, and it was kind of like that. It was like all of a sudden I was having my first beer again, and then on top of that there was just like this overpowering smoky.
Yeah. I mean, not saying that that's the case with this beer, because I'm pretty sure that with this beer it was just poor planning, but you mentioned the bready kind of turn beers that you've had in the past, that could have just been also infected beer from mishandling. Because a lot of times that's what people don't take into account. Like when these beers get delivered to wherever they're getting delivered to, sometimes delivery drivers will just leave the hand truck outside. The sun's hitting the bottles. That's no bueno,
Yeah. Well, I mean, and like if you're getting it on draft too, you never know. I remember playing a pub in, I think it was in Madison, Wisconsin years ago. And it was kind of like when New Belgium was still kind of on the up and up. And I was really a fan of Fat Tire. This is like 2003 or so, 2004. And I remember getting a pint of Fat Tire at the bar, and it tasted like salad dressing. It was like another undrinkable beer. It's like I thought I liked that, but this is like, yeah, it had like that crazy vinegar.
That's because two things. They don't clean their lines, their draft lines.
That's kind of what I assumed.
Yeah, or something happened in the keg. So I was just talking to some brewers about this too. Like, you can make the best beer in the world, and if you don't clean out the keg that it's going into, it's garbage.
Yeah.
Yeah, it goes bad. Like, even if you just miss a spot. If you miss one spot, that's bacteria that goes into the beer and just, you know.
Yeah. I don't, maybe it was a combo of those things. It was like beyond foul.
Yeah. If you ever go to a bar, and this is for the listeners, if you ever go to a bar and you have a beer and it's supposed to be like a regular Pilsner, like something you always get, like you were getting Fat Tire before, or, you know, like a Coors, whatever, and it tastes like butter, send it back. That means their beer lines are very, very dirty. It's a specific type of infection. I believe it's diacetyl that makes it taste like buttery popcorn.
Oh, weird.
It's so gross, man. So when I worked at Cigar City, we would get up at like 9 a.m. and drink infected beer from different time periods on purpose, like a class, because we were trying to learn. You know, if I go to one of my accounts and they're complaining that, hey, my beer tastes like popcorn, I can be like, yeah, that's diacetyl. You got to clean your lines. Here, I'll do it. You know, and I fix it. But there, you know, and there's a different infections have different flavor profiles, and there's one that's goat hair. Oh. I'm reading the paper and I'm like, goat hair? I don't want to drink that.
Yeah, it's like, how do you even like? I would say, how do you even land on that being a comparison? But I've been to like some of those kind of bougie farm to table restaurants where it's like, oh, like, well, this is actually, you know, like yak butter, you know, or you know, something like something
super gamey.
Yeah, and then you have it, and it's like, whoa, this. I feel like I can smell a barn, like, and not like in a good way, not like fresh cut hay, but like just weird animal livestock, like.
Yeah.
I'm not into that.
So that's one of the profiles. The other one's a green apple. If it's not supposed to be a green apple beer, but it tastes like green apple, that's an infection too.
Yeah, that's kind of what that Fat Tire was like. It was just like really sour and vinegary and woo.
And I feel like such a snob. Like I went to the Rainbow here in Hollywood, and they had the Motorhead beer in cans, and I ordered it. I'm like, sure, whatever, I'll have a Motorhead beer at the Motorhead bar. Why not? And they bring it out. I look at it, and I'm like, all right, it's a pale ale. Pale ale. I know what those taste like. And I took a sip, and it was sour. And it's always such a like I feel like a snobby asshole. Excuse me, your beer's infected. She's like, no, it's fresh. We just got them the other day. I'm like, yeah, but it tastes sour. She took it and took a sip. She's like, tastes good to me. I'm like, but it's not supposed to taste like that. You can have it if you want. I'm not paying for that.
I tend to like. I'm very hesitant to ever return or complain about.
Yeah.
But in a scenario like that, it's like, yeah, you kind of.
Like, I'm not a, you know, what's the word? Karen. I'm not a Karen.
Yeah. If it's going to make you sick, or if it's just like, yeah.
It's going to make you sick. You're going to get the shits. That's what's going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not worth it.
Well, hey, we've gone for almost past an hour, have we? Are we past an hour?
Yeah, I think so.
Awesome. Well, hey, thank you again for doing this again. And, you know, like I said, we'll probably put out the audio of the other one, because, I mean, we did talk about other things. It's not the same conversation. There are some things we did talk about, but it was great, man. Thank you so much for joining. And people that are watching and listening, follow at Bubble Guts with a Z, right?
Yes, I believe so.
Yeah. On Instagram.
It is, yes.
For all your updates, you have so many bands. I don't know how you do it. You know, Russian Circles and Sumac, and now These Arms Are Snakes are coming, like, you know, dropping stuff. And, you know, I don't know how you do it.
It's busy. It's very busy. 2022 is like the year everyone's chomping at the bit to get back and make up for lost time. So I think once the year's over, it's going to be a lot easier. But,
all right. Well, hopefully I can catch you guys in a week or so at Sumac here in LA at Echoplex.
Yep.
So hopefully we can meet up there, and everybody, please support, pick up the album, get the These Arms, the Duct Tape and Shivered Crows, pick that up, pick up the new Sumac when that happens. Please support. It's the only way that you can continue to get really great music. And for those people that I've met that are like, oh, I don't really listen to music, something's wrong with you. Go seek help. How do you not listen to music?
What a weird life it must be.
Yeah, like it doesn't have to be a specific genre, but any music, nothing.
Yeah, just sitting in silence, just dancing to nothing.
Oh my God, I don't get it. I don't get it how you can just not be into music. It's weird. But anyway, support music if you're into music. Support Brian. Thank you so much. And we'll see each other soon, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, take care.
Have a good one. Thanks.
Cheers.